Hello students, I am Dr. Vidya Patil and I am going to be your English teacher for the first SEM English language course. In today's video, we will be discussing about the topic subject-verb agreement. This is a very important aspect of English grammar. Generally, when we are framing our sentences, we tend to neglect this particular aspect of English grammar, that is trying to match the subject as well as the verb which we use along with the subject. So, which are the different kinds of verbs which we need to use with which kind of subject? This is what we'll try to learn and understand in today's video. Let us now try to understand what is subject-verb agreement. Before we begin with the actual topic, let us first understand what is the subject. The subject of a verb is the person or thing that does the action. So, in a sentence, the person who is doing the work or who is performing the action is called the subject. Sally swims in the pool. She swims well. So, in both the sentences, the action which is being performed is swimming and the person who is performing this action is Sally. So, she becomes, in the first sentence, Sally is the subject. In the second sentence, the word she, which is a pronoun, is used and so she becomes the subject. Now, let us see in the next example. The two girls swim in the pool. They swim well. Now, in this sentence, swim is again the verb, but the person or the people who are performing the action are two girls. So, the subject now becomes the two girls. In the next sentence, the pronoun they is used and so the subject becomes they. Now, let us try to see which are the commonly used linking verbs or helping verbs. Generally, when the subject is singular in nature, then we use the linking verbs or the helping verbs such as is, was, am, has, does. When the subject is plural, then we use the helping verb are, were, have, do. Let us now see how we need to match the subject and the helping verb or the verbs. When the subject is a singular noun, that is, there is only one person who is the subject in the sentence, then usually the verb will either end in S or ES. Let us look at a few of the examples. Kim loves her grandmother. In this sentence, the verb is loves and the person who is performing this action is the subject, that is Kim. Since Kim is a singular noun, that is only one person, the verb is loves and you can see that the verb ends with S. Let us now look at another example. My dog eats from her bowl. Here, the verb or the action which is taking place is eats and the subject is my dog. Again, it is a singular noun and therefore the verb ends with S. Tom washes his dog. The verb is washes. The subject is Tom. Tom is a singular noun and so the verb here we find ends with ES. His cat plays with the ball. The verb is plays. The subject is his cat. It is a singular noun and therefore we find that the verb ends with S. Mr. Smith watches TV. Again, the verb is watches. The subject is Mr. Smith. It is a singular noun and so the verb ends with es. Let us now look at sentences which have plural subjects. Sentences which have plural subjects will have verbs without ending with s or es. Let us look at some of the examples. Two girls read. Now, here the subject is plural and therefore the verb is does not end with s or es. Walk. Here the subject is plural and so the verb does not end with s or es. The children eat. Again, the subject is plural, therefore the verb is not followed or does not end with s or es. The one basic rule which we need to follow when we are trying to understand how to match the subject and the verb in a sentence is that the subject and verbs must agree in number. Therefore, if the subject is singular, then the verb must also be singular. And if the subject is plural, then the verb should also be plural. For example, she writes every day. She is singular, therefore the verb is also in the singular form and is followed by s or es. They write every day. In this sentence, the subject is plural, therefore the verb is also plural and it does not end with s or es. Let us look at some more examples. The first sentence, the baby drinks milk. Since the subject, the baby, is singular, the verb is followed by s. In the plural form, it becomes the babies drink milk. Now the subject is plural, therefore the verb is not followed by s. Similarly, the sari is red in color. Here the subject is singular. The saris are red in color. Here the subject is plural. Now singular subject, the tailor stitches clothes. Plural subject, the tailors stitch clothes. Singular subject, the girl sings a song. Plural subject, the girls sing a song. Singular subject, the painter paints the wall. Plural subject, the painters paint the wall. Singular subject, the baby cries loudly. Plural subject, the babies cry loudly. Another rule to remember is that when the subject of the sentence is composed of two or more nouns or pronouns which are connected by the word and, then we need to use a plural verb. That is, if the subject of the sentence consists of two different subjects and both are connected by the word and, then it has to be considered as a plural subject and we need to use a plural verb. That is a verb which is not followed by or which does not end with s or es. For example, the doctoral student and the committee members write every day. So here we find that the subject consists of two nouns, that is the doctoral student and the second noun is the committee members. Both these are connected by the word and. Therefore, this becomes a plural subject and we use the plural verb write, which does not end with s or es. Another rule which we need to follow is that when there is one subject and more than one verb in a sentence, then all the verbs throughout the sentence must agree with the subject. That is, if in a sentence there is only one subject and there are two or more verbs, then if the subject is singular in nature, then all the verbs in the sentence should also be singular. If the subject is plural in nature, then all the verbs will be plural. For example, interviews are one way to collect data and allow researchers to gain an in-depth understanding of participants. In this sentence, there is only one subject, that is interviews, but there are two verbs, are and allow. Now, since interviews is plural, that is why the verbs are is also plural and the verb allow is also the plural form and does not end with s or es. Let us take up another example. An assumption is something that is generally accepted as true and is an important consideration when conducting a doctoral study. In this sentence, an assumption is the subject, which is singular. There are two verbs, is and is, and since the subject is singular, both the verb forms which have been used are also singular. The next rule which you should know of is that when a phrase comes between the subject and the verb, we need to remember that the verb will still agree with the subject and not with the noun or the pronoun in the phrase which is following the subject of the sentence. For example, let us see this sentence. The student as well as the committee members is excited. In this sentence, the student is the subject. The verb is. Now we find a phrase as well as the committee members between the subject and the verb. Though the noun in the phrase is plural in nature, but we can see that the verb is still singular because the subject, the student, is singular. Similarly, let us look at another example. The car with many riders was speeding around the curve. In this sentence, the subject is the car. The verb is was. The phrase with many riders is being used between the subject and the verb. Though the noun which is used in the phrase is plural, we will still use a singular verb because the subject, the car, is singular. Therefore, in this sentence, the subject, the car, is singular and the verb was is also singular. Another simple rule which we need to follow is when two or more singular nouns or pronouns are connected by or nor, then we need to use a singular verb. For example, the chairperson or the CEO approves the proposal before proceeding. In this sentence, there are two nouns, the chairperson, the CEO. But the word between these two nouns which is being used is or. Therefore, we need to use a singular verb along with this which ends either in s or es. That is why we use the verb approves. So, when we have two nouns which has or nor between them, then we use a singular verb. The next rule which we need to know is that when a compound subject contains both a singular as well as the plural noun, and if it is joined by or nor, then the verb will agree with the part of the subject which is closest to the verb. This is known as the rule of proximity. Therefore, if in a sentence there are two nouns and one of the nouns is singular and the other is plural, then we need to use a verb which agrees or which matches with the subject or the noun which is closest to the verb. For example, the student or the committee members write every day. Here we find that the subject is the student or the committee members and the verb is write. Now, this subject consists of two nouns, the student, the committee members. The student is singular, the committee members is plural. Now, the nearest noun to the verb here is the committee members, which is plural. Therefore, the verb which we use will also be plural and it does not end with s or es. In the next example, the committee members or the student writes every day. Here again, the subject consists of two nouns, the committee members and the student. The committee members is plural and the student is singular. In this sentence, the nearest noun to the verb is the student, which is singular. Therefore, the verb which follows it will also be singular and will end with s or es. In this way, whenever you come across a sentence which has a compound subject, that is, two or more subjects, and if the subjects are joined with or nor, then we need to use the verb which agrees with the closest subject. You will be able to understand this better by some more examples. The ranger or the campers see the bear. The ranger is singular, campers is plural. It is joined by the word or. Therefore, the verb see is also plural. Next, the rangers or the camper sees the bear. Here, the subject consists of two nouns, rangers and camper. Rangers is plural, camper is singular. Therefore, the verb also becomes singular and we use sees. The rangers, the explorers or the camper sees the bear. Here, the subject consists of three nouns. Rangers is plural, explorers is plural, but camper is singular. Since camper is closest to the verb will also be singular and we use sees. Another rule which needs to be followed is that the words and phrases each one, either, neither, everyone, everybody, anyone, anybody, nobody, somebody, someone, and no one are singular and require a singular verb. Therefore, if any of the sentences has any of these words or phrases, then the verb which follows it will always be singular. The next rule is that countable nouns take a singular verb. So, let us look at some of the examples. Education is the key to success. Education is the subject. It is a noun which is uncountable. Therefore, the verb is singular. Diabetes affects many people around the world. Diabetes is non-countable or uncountable. Therefore, the verb is singular and ends with s. The information obtained from the business owners was relevant to include in the study. information. Again, an uncountable noun. Therefore, the verb is was is singular. The research I found on the topic was limited. Research is again an uncountable noun, and therefore it is the verb is singular. You can understand this better by looking at the following examples. Countable nouns can be both singular or plural. An apple is singular, some apples is plural. But uncountable nouns will always be singular. Coffee, milk, money, pasta, these are all uncountable nouns and will always be considered as singular. Another simple rule which we need to remember is that collective nouns, which are words which imply that there are more than one person involved, but are always considered as singular and therefore are followed by a singular verb. Some examples of such collective nouns are group, team, committee, family, class, etc. Let us now look at some of the examples. The group meets every week. In this sentence, the verb is meets and the subject is the group. The group is a collective noun which implies or gives us the meaning that there are many people involved here. But it is treated as a singular subject and is therefore followed by a singular verb which ends in S or ES. Another example, the committee agrees on the quality of the writing. Here, the subject is the committee. Again, it means a group of people or two or more people, but is treated as a singular subject. And therefore, the verb agrees, which follows this subject, ends with S. Therefore, whenever we use collective nouns as the subject, then it has to be treated as singular and we need to use a singular verb along with it. Let us now look at an example. The club is meeting today. The club is a collective noun. It is treated as singular and therefore is followed by a singular verb is. The next example, the clubs are having a meeting today. In this sentence, the subject, the clubs, shows that it is plural since it involves two or more clubs. Therefore, we now consider it as a plural subject and is followed by a plural verb are. Another exception to the previously mentioned rule is this sentence. The couple are separating this week. In this sentence, the word the couple is the subject. When we use the couple, each member of this unit are treated as separate individuals and therefore there are two people. Thus, it is treated as a plural subject and it is followed by a plural verb are. So students, we have learned various rules which will help us know which verb has to be used with which subject. Learning to match our verbs with the subject will help us to write grammatically correct sentences. I am sure you will now be more confident whenever you are writing and will remember these simple rules when you are using the verb in a given sentence. I hope you liked this video. Thank you.